Welcome back to another episode of the Frustrated CEO podcast. Thanks for joining us again today. My name is Patrick Lyons. I'm one of your show hosts. I'm here with my colleagues, and we have a guest today. Let's start with our colleagues. Patsy Feeman, welcome back.
Thanks. Delighted to be here.
Glad to have you. And Leb Tannenbaum, welcome back to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, it's going to be a good episode. Listener, our guest today is Fernando Camacho. Now, this is someone that I have known for a long time. Fern is, and I'd say actually our team has known Fern for a couple of years now as well. Fern is the founder of Overdog Digital, which is a digital marketing agency specifically aimed at helping dog daycares and boarding facilities attract, convert, and retain customers without that overwhelm or burnout that a business owner might have. By creating winning marketing campaigns and providing the business guidance to build momentum and spark long-term growth. I mentioned I've known Fern for a long time. I actually have known him for 32 years. We met in college. And what has always amazed me about Fern is that he is a serial creator, even back then. To this point, he's written 8 books. He has developed a number of online and in-person programs to train and certify dog daycare staff. He has delivered wildly entertaining and educational presentations to audiences at national conferences and private events who I can tell you can't get enough of Fern. And he's the host of several very popular podcasts that have been running for many years. But a couple things separate Fern from what I might consider other great people and great content creators. First, Fern hasn't always been the positive, optimistic, and outgoingly fun person that his audiences have come to know and love. Over the years, he has worked tremendously hard on changing old habits and building a positive mindset, and we're going to get into that a little bit today. The second thing that I think separates Fern from others is he has just as much desire and interest to help others succeed as he does in seeing himself succeed. If you need evidence of that, the podcast that you're listening to right now, this show, would not probably exist without Fern. Fern is not only the producer of the Frustrated CEO podcast, he builds and maintains the frustratedceo.com website, where all of our shows are posted along with the companion Let's Get Practical. And I would say each of the show hosts would consider Fern to be a creative consultant for us behind the scenes. Fern, you have been, before I get into our first question, Fern, welcome to the Frustrated CEO podcast.
Well, thank you. It's so exciting to be on this side of it. It's just, I'm giddy.
Yeah, me too. So let's talk about that. This is, you said, excited to be on this side of the camera because for the first 33 episodes, you have been behind the scenes helping this thing run, right? Helping us launch it and then helping make it work. Why would you ever agree to move from behind the camera to in front of it?
Well, I think I've been pitching me since day one. You guys I had to beat you down after 30 episodes. You got finally annoyed with me where you said, all right, just come on. What's exciting about, I'm very excited and passionate about kind of your audience and your subject matter because I've had a number of, I think I'm on my 6th or 7th career at this point in my life. And I've done it both ways. I've worked for other people and I've created my own thing. And I can say being on both sides of it, there's no feeling better than creating your own business, something that you have built the way you want to, but it's not easy. This is why not a lot of people do it. It's not easy being the helm of a company. It's not easy calling all the shots and taking all the responsibility and stuff. However, I am such a fan of it, and I think it's so great that I want to empower as many people to be able to do that because it's such a great feeling to have that kind of ability to steer the ship where you want it to go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you told me at one point you crossed over from the whether you want to call it employable to the unemployable a number of years ago, right? I think you told me a number of years ago that to you, hell would be sitting in a cubicle every day or, stuck in an office. Now, a lot of our listeners are stuck in the office. How do you find, if you are that listener, if you are, you're a CEO of a business, you're sitting in your office, how do you if you're feeling that, how do you create that balance so that you're not stuck sitting in an office? How do you still find joy? How do you make joy?
Yeah, the
Day?
thing is, first of all, there's nothing wrong with being in an office. I think one of the most important qualities that anybody can have, especially a leader, is self-awareness. To be really sure about who you are, to know who you are. So I know really well who I am. I am unapologetic to it, and I know what makes me happy, and I know what doesn't. And I'm also very aware that I'm not wired like everyone else. Someone may be very different. They may have different goals and different aspirations, and what makes them happy is different than what makes me happy. But I know what makes me happy, and I knew at a very young age. Like I can still remember, like I told you I had a bunch of careers. Like the one consistent thing that I had is I could never have anything that required me to wear a tie. Like that's all I cared about, like, cause I knew that's not the kind it's not for me. And I've had jobs where I've had to, I've been in the cubicle, I've been in an office setting, and I realized for my personality, it does not fit. So I think the most important thing, there's nothing wrong with whatever you enjoy or where you feel you fit in. It's just you have to understand who you are and embrace the differences from everyone else and just be happy with what makes you happy. And then you gear everything you do to around that goal of whatever that is, seek out whatever makes you happy. I think what happens, what I think what happened to me, and like, so I say I have a lot of different careers. All right. I remember the one thing I was always very good at for the most part. And what I would do is when something wasn't what I knew, because I'm, again, that self-awareness, I knew in my heart is not something I really wanted long-term. I'm like, it's time to make a change. But there's one job that I lasted longer than many of the others. Okay. And that job was where I find a lot of people are in this place in what I call comfortably unhappy. It's, they know something's not right, but they don't hate it enough to do something. And what happens is they enter what I call the drift. And you realize all of a sudden, all these years went by and you're like, what the hell was I doing here? I really wasn't satisfied. This really wasn't what I wanted to do, but I just kept here because I didn't hate it enough to do something. So for me, I was a real estate appraiser, and I was not passionate about real estate. I didn't enjoy it, but I didn't hate it. It was a paycheck. I got to hang out in the park with my dog whenever I wanted to and made my own schedule. So I stayed in that way longer. And it took the financial crash of 2008 where I lost my business overnight. And then I had to figure out what the hell am I going to do now? And that's the only time I sat down and go, wait, what do I want to do? And then once I started on that path, I'm like, this was the best thing that ever happened to me. Because God only knows how long I would have drifted for if that didn't force me to do something. So I think if you got to keep checking in with yourself and say, all right, am I on the course that really I want to be on? And sometimes you just need to make some, minor course corrections, do stuff internally. But it all starts with self-awareness, being really understanding who you are. And I don't think you can understand anyone else until you understand yourself.
Fern, did you have any particular books or any particular method that helped you better understand yourself, or that, I'm in this uncomfortably unhappy or comfortably unhappy space? I mean,
at the time, like I've done decades of personal development. I can't even probably count the number of books that I've read, seminars I've gone to, podcasts I've listened to. But I think back then it wasn't a very conscious thing. And then it kind of, when that happened, then it was like kind of like a slap in the face, where it was like a wake up call where, oh my God, like what else is going on that I'm not aware of? And I started to take a good look at myself and start to be more present in my life to figure out how I'm feeling, what's happening. And just making sure that I'm steering where I want to go and not letting the environment around me just pull me along in whatever direction it's deciding to go in. So I think I think it's very important to be a conscious thing and be proactive about it. Don't wait for something bad to happen and realize, man, I should have done that 10 years ago. Take that moment to take some quiet time with yourself and think, is this really what I want? Is there ways for me to make it improve, make it better? Just life goes by quick. We don't want to waste a second of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So obviously in the crash of 2008, that gives you that pause. You're talking about being pulled along. We live in a being pulled along, distracted, too many things to do, society or culture. Do you have, if we were to dive in a little bit deeper about that opportunity to reflect or to take a good look, do you have any more to say on that, about how to really create that for yourself?
You mean without losing your job overnight?
Yeah, without losing your job overnight, yes. Well, be intentional about it.
Yeah. Don't sit there. I hope something massive happens. Yeah. And for a lot of people, it was the pandemic.
Yeah.
The pandemic caused a lot of people to rethink. So many people didn't go back to work because they stopped and they're like, I don't really like that job. I don't know if I want to go back now. So it was another catastrophic event that forced them to do that. But I don't think we should just wait for the next economic decline or the next pandemic to really do that. You don't have to wait, and you shouldn't wait. Time is speeding by. So I think that the problem is, in our day and age, there is life moves at the speed of light. So we're all so terribly busy. We've got a million things to do, whether we've got family, we've got a business, we've got friends, we've got things that we've are assaulted on. I forget what the stat was, but I the difference of how many messages someone receives now, and by messages I mean just things that enter your awareness from now, from 30 years ago, it's tens of thousands more. It's crazy. We're assaulted, and what happens is this barrage, we're almost dodging them all over the place, and it's exhausting, and we never really pause to actually see what's really going on around us. We're just having all this stuff. So I think you need time, and you've got to be intentional about this, to create some space for yourself, some quiet time, and do some little reflection on, okay, what's going on, and let's steer the ship. Let's be intentional about intentional. That's not really a word. Let's be intentional about where we want to go. So, I think one of the biggest detriments, so our cell phones and I'm a digital marketer, so I love technology. Technology is my whole job. However, it's a double-edged sword. So I think that the accessibility of a phone is not necessarily a great thing. So I try to be very conscious of doing specific things to remove that distraction from me. So in the morning, everyone, my phone is never in my bedroom, ever. I do not bring it in there at all. So at the end of the day, I'm nowhere near my phone. I wake up, I'm nowhere near my phone. I don't want to start like that. I don't want to start. That's what happens is you pick up your phone, you look at your email or something, you're already reacting. Yep. That's not intentional. Now you're on someone else's agenda. So 30 minutes, grab a cup of coffee. All right. I don't drink coffee, so I get a glass of juice. I sit down. I just take a deep breath, 20, 30 minutes. I say, how am I feeling? What am I doing today? Where do I want this day to go? Because if you don't figure out where your day goes, those days start adding up, and then you don't know where your month went. And then you don't know where the quarter went. Pretty soon it's years later. So you got to be intentional about creating a little space to stop the world, see where you're going, make sure you're headed in the direction that you want, so that if you're not, you can make course corrections before you're way off course.
Got it. Thanks.
Fern, does a lot of your work happen happens over in a digital space as opposed to people in person? And the reason I'm asking the question, I'm thinking of our listeners, is there's a lot of leaders and CEOs who are adjusting to, and some really liking, being on Zoom, having Zoom meetings, and some really longing for that face-to-face personal interaction with people. And we, in the beginning of the pandemic as consultants, rewrote a lot of communication that was very fear-based. Like, because we're not going to see each other, you're going to time in the morning, you're going to time out, and you're going to, without necessarily even any thought about what's the person's environment like to work at home. How does that, and do you do any in-person work? I don't even know if that's part of the deal.
So all my stuff is done online, except I do speaking. So I have a bunch of speaking engagements, which is, by the way, my favorite thing is getting in front of people in person. So okay. I love that. I think nothing can replicate the kind of connection that you create when you're face to face with someone. However, the virtual environment, now that we have like stuff like this, is like you can see my body language. You could see if I'm rolling my eyes at you as you ask that question. You could see so you could feel emotion where normally if it was just a phone, you really can't get the full. I mean, again, right. It's not as good as in person, but I think it's also for some being self-aware. Some people, this is fine. Some people are a little more introverted and they actually don't feel like they can be themselves when there's someone like right in front of them. So something like this gives them the freedom to feel a little bit more comfortable. Other people, they need to shake a hand. They need to be right there. And it's a personal preference. I do think that although the technology is great and we can do stuff, I think I think we're human beings are social creatures. So I think it's important to get together and stuff. So like I work from my house. I sit on my couch next to my Beagle for most of my day. So I try to make it a point to get out and interact with other human beings in person often, because it's important, I think, as human creatures to do that. But everyone I think is a little different, and just understanding some people may thrive in an environment like this where it's more of a virtual, and they may struggle, especially if, you see a lot of people in the office. There's a lot of distractions in the office too. Everyone's kind of chatting. We're having lunch. Just, oh, who bought bagels today? Sometimes you get more work done without all those added distractions. So I think it can work either way. I'm not sure there is a better or worse, but answer for it. But I think it's more of a case by case individual preference.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you, Leb asked you earlier about books you read and things you've done, courses you've taken, and that gets a little bit into the professional development. Again, I talked about things that I think separate you from a lot of people. One thing I could have added to that list is how intentional you are, even to this day, and have been for decades, on personal and professional development. So for our listener, when I think of you, Fern, you are proof that when an organization is struggling with bad behavior, or a cultural misfit, and when the organization says, well, that's just who they are, that's just who that person is, and we do that, right? That the serial pessimist or the serial grouch, whatever, the serial hothead, whatever that person is, and that's how we make excuses for that person by saying, well, that's just how they are, or worse yet, well, that's just how I am. Hey, I'm sorry, that's just how I am. And I think you are proof that that's a lie. That's not a true statement, because you can change behavior. You can change perspective. Talk a little bit about maybe, being a pessimist growing up. That's my word, not yours, but what was that glass half empty approach? And then how, when did you notice it, and what made you want to change it? And then what were some of the things that you've done? I think all of this is relevant, not just for an organization dealing with the serial bad behaviors, but also for a CEO, for a senior leader who's trying to change her or his mindset for their own personal and professional development.
Absolutely. And I think there's so many limiting beliefs that are holding people back, that we tell ourselves that aren't necessarily true. We've decided they're true, but they're not necessarily true. We just keep telling ourselves that, I think it's like Tony Robbins that talks about the story, the narrative you keep telling yourself, like that's you're creating that. And that's one of the things I realized early on, not early on, unfortunately, decades late, is so like when I was younger, my environment around me was very negative. And the thing is, you are a byproduct a lot of times of your environment. The people you hang out with, I would say it's like, so the fuel that's assaulting all those messages, they penetrate you, whether you are aware of it or not. So I had a lot of negative messaging, specifically from my mom, who's a very negative victim type of person. And not intentionally, but intentionally, she caused me to also be very negative and be a victim and just think that all this stuff was happening to me. I had no control over it. This is just the way it is. Like her favorite expression was, "You can't win for losing." Like she must say that. She must have said a million times a day. And so when you met me back in college, I was just I was just starting to see that there was other options out there, because now I hit college and I met a bunch of friends who aren't like that. And I'm like, this is interesting. They're not like all the people I used to know. So that was the beginning of opening my mind to that something can be different. So any change is possible, okay? But it's not easy. Everything is repetitions forming habits. Enough repetitions goes on, you're stuck with that habit. I had like 18 to 20 years of negative repetitions. That's not going to change in a weekend. So I had to go on a little journey. And at the beginning, it wasn't intentional. It was basically changing my environment a little bit. There was one of my friends, my friend Jeff, who, Patrick, you do know. Mm-hmm. He was the most positive guy I've ever seen in my life. He was unbelievable. Like nothing got him down. To this day, I don't think I've ever seen him bummed out. And he was like a breath of fresh air in my life. And I was like, oh, wow, look at this guy. Nothing gets him down. He's so happy all the time. Even when things go wrong, the guy is so happy. He was the first person to really, and he didn't do this intentionally, and I thanked him for just being himself much later in life, to show me that there's another way. So then over the years, I started to get more intentional with it, started to do a lot of reading. And like I said, I've read hundreds probably of personal development books. Are they all different? No. A lot of them say roughly the same thing. But what I'm doing is I'm doing repetitions. A lot of positive things. I haven't picked up a newspaper in about 30 years. It's mostly negative. I don't want negative. I just want positive. I do not haven't watched the news in like 30 years. I still know what's going on, kind of. I find out, but I don't want to be assaulted. What I want is positivity. Okay. And, and my dad, so my mom and dad were divorced. My mom was the one I lived with. She was very bummed out. My dad is the opposite. He is the ultimate optimist. And the more I started listening to him, and here's one thing I want to impart on leaders out there. And it's one thing that I've learned because of my dad and that I've been practicing with my kids. And I think the same is true of the people around you where you work, especially if you're a leader. It's not so you can't change someone who doesn't want to change. Okay. That has to come from within. They have to want to do it. And my dad, knowing that, he sees, what I'm like and everything. So all he did was be himself. His positive, awesome self. And in the beginning, it was hitting me, but I really wasn't listening to whatever, but a little bit would seep in each time. I'm watching him, I'm observing. Just like, when they say parents, kids are not really so much listening to what you say, but they're watching what you do and how you act, how you treat other people. So every time you just live, so like if your staff is kind of not behaving properly or not really happy and upbeat, you can't really change them, but you can influence them by being that positive force that my buddy Jeff was for me, that my dad was for me. All those things change a little bit. So I think how you show up and present yourself, regardless of your environment around you, of the other people. Like I say, some people, like it took me a little while it took me years for my dad. My dad every Christmas would give me a book. It was a personal development book, like some sort of positivity book. Like for 7, 8, maybe 10 years. I got it for Christmas. I threw it in the corner, never read it. And then one day he did it again. I got home, I looked at it, I'm like, and I read it. Took him 10 years of doing it, but I've read every one since. And so he said, I'm just going to be myself. Maybe some will seep in, and slowly and surely I started to open up to it, and they've helped guide me. So I think any leader out there, you can guide your people by your actions, even if they don't want to take it. It's still happening in their subconscious.
Yep.
So we've spent some time talking about getting to know your authentic self, and now we're starting to move into get to know your audience. And I know that's a really big focus of yours is help us just to understand our audience so that we can add value.
And that's the key word there. Key words.
So can you help us understand a little bit more? Because I mean, our audiences are our customers, our peers, our frontline workers. I mean, for the CEOs out there, they got like a wide variety of people in their audience.
Yeah, I mean, I love how you said that. Add value, and that's the key. Again, it's about getting out of ourselves and getting into our audience, whether it's our customers or our coworkers or the people underneath us that are working underneath for a manager. How do we, like everyone, like I was just having this conversation with one of my clients. She's like, I should do something. She was like trying to think of something to do for her customers. She was going to give them like some swag, with their logo on it and stuff. I'm like, why the hell would they want to advertise your business? That helps you. Like, that's not about them. How can we give value to them? What would they value? So I think it's always trying to figure out not what you value or the company values, although that's important. We want to make sure how can we provide value to the people around us. And a lot of times it's not like a one size fits all. All right. The more personal you can make the value you add, and sometimes you can't really do that at scale, but the more you really understand whatever audience you're trying to reach. And I'm always trying to I'm obsessed with like what I call the customer journey. Like, what are they doing? What is their experience? And how do I improve it? How do I make it better? How can we make your staff, how do we make their experience better, easier to come to work, and your customers, how do we make it easy for them to do business with you? How can we provide as much value as possible? And I'm a big believer in the more value you provide, the more valuable you become. And I think that works across the board.
Mm-hmm.
Which kind of leads naturally into content, which is definitely a topic that I'd want to cover with you. As a team, we want to cover with you because, again, the show is, I don't want to say it wouldn't exist. It probably would still be in development because you were a good kick in the rear end to help us get going, and you produce it. And the reason we looked to you for that help is because you are and have been for, I'd say years, like I want to say decades, but I don't know how far back it goes, at creating content. I talked about your presentations and they are wildly entertaining and successful, and like with people cheering at the end, and it's not just a boring lecture that so many of us have found ourselves in. Talk about your approach to content. What are some of the ways, again, with our audience in mind, a listener, a business, a CEO who might be thinking, we need to be providing more content, to your point, becoming more valuable by adding more value. Talk about content.
I'm a big believer of content. It's one of probably my biggest skill sets. I'm definitely, I feel like that's one of my best things that I do. And it's no surprise, one of my favorite things to do. So my heart is really in it. I do like talking, which is why you can't shut me up and ask your questions in between here. So I love sharing information. But again, it always starts with, how do I create value? And the thing is, especially businesses, I see what they do is they're afraid about too much. They're afraid about giving away too much. And to me, I would give away everything I can. Everything I can, I'm going to try to give away, because no matter what, even if I'm going to give away my best stuff. All right. Because no matter what, some people are going to take it. They're going to be able to get that stuff. They're going to content. They're going to absorb it, and they're going to use it, and they're going to see results. Awesome. Good news. I'm so glad I helped you out. Others are going to say, wow, this is great, but I can't do this by myself. I need a little help. And those are people who are going to seek out extra help. So by holding back, you're not helping anybody, especially your business. So when you're creating content, I encourage people to let go and give away your best stuff. Show people, the way to help people is by actually helping them, so like one of my marketing, mentors, a guy by the name of Frank Kern, and he always says that. He's like, the key to get people to want to work with you is you help them by actually helping them, then they'll want to do business with you. They'll want to be around you. You just got to actually help them. So there's a lot of forms of content. Sometimes it's nervous, like a lot of you guys right here in the beginning, when I said, I want you to go and do a podcast. I want you to go out there. I want you to put yourself out there. It's a little nerve-wracking in the beginning, because you're like, oh my God, someone's going to, you're always like a little self-conscious. What if they don't like me? What if I don't say the right thing? It's difficult, but you got to just put yourself out there. You got to do it. You got to stumble, got to get up. You do it again. It happens every time. You get a little better at it. You figure it out. Every episode you guys do, I hear this, it gets better and better and better. It becomes so conversational. When in the beginning, it was very intentional, and you were really, you could tell you were really thinking about everything you're doing. Now it seems like you've been doing it for years and years and years and years. It's so natural. The only way to do that is by doing it. So I can't even imagine how many podcasts that I've recorded. It's probably somewhere around 400 or so in the various shows that I've started and stopped and stuff. I've written over probably 100 blog posts. I've probably shot hundreds of videos. They sucked in the beginning. They're painful, really painful to go back to some of those. But I tried, and you just keep putting yourself out there. And I think that when you do that, a lot of people, sometimes you're like, okay, well, my audience is CEOs, or I have this kind of audience, and they're a little bit more reserved, so I can't really. So like me, I'm kind of a goofy guy, and but I think, you know what? I want to attract people like-minded. I'm going to be myself. So I always emphasize putting your personality in your content. I write like I talk. I am a very kind of animated guy, as I'm sitting here waving my arms, like crazy and everything. That's how I am. I joke around a lot. That's in my content. And that means some people are really going to resonate with that. And I'm like, awesome. Come over here with me. I can show you more. Other people are like, this guy's an idiot. I can't go near him. I'm like, great. You guys go over there. That's fine. You don't try to please everybody. But you got to be yourself. And the more personality, I always say, like, businesses don't do business with businesses. They do business with people. So I'm teaching my clients, you don't hide behind your business. I want you out there. I want them to get to know who they're doing business with. Because that way, if they can see the face, see the person who's behind it all, then they can start to make an emotional connection instead of just a transactional one. And once you go to emotional, it's much deeper. So that's what happens when you put your personality and put yourself out there.
Now, a lot of people find you through your content. Talk about, because for a listener who's thinking that it's content for the sake of content, I mean, to a certain extent, to your point, it's helping people. You are providing value. You are becoming valuable by providing value. But it's business development. It's always been business development for you. So talk about, I know this from other conversations you and I have had. When people call you, they've already, in some cases, binge watched or binge listened to your content. You've met people who have looked at you and literally been starstruck because they think you're a celebrity. And I know you as just this goofy guy from college, right? So talk about how your content has created your brand, and this is the other thing. So talk about how it's created your brand, but then talk about the community that you have built through your content, the different groups that you've built, and again, how that's business development specific to growing your own brand, growing your own business.
Yeah, it's the thing about content is in the beginning, there's nobody there. Like, you're just putting it out there. Unless you start with like this big audience and this big following, you're just doing it. But the thing about content and the reason to do it, one of the main reasons I do it, besides the fact that I like doing it, is that I'm trying to grow businesses with it. And the thing about I am like, so I'm a digital marketer. I run one of the things I do for people is I run ads for them, paid advertising. I have run almost no paid advertising for my digital agency because I decided I didn't want to do that, because I didn't want to, like, in digital marketing as a profession, we're the most, like, everyone knows about bad marketers. Like, you probably get calls for them all. I'm sure everyone listening gets a call from some stupid digital marketing agency saying, hey man, I can increase your SEO and let's build your website and everything. All that to me, again, is one-sided. And I am not a cold call type of guy. I prefer warm audiences. I prefer inbound marketing. So those are the things I like to focus on because, and this is, again, goes to my personality. I am not the kind of guy that can stomach having 20 people hang up on me and tell me off to get one of them to talk to me. Like, that's just not me. That's not how I want to spend my days. That's not fun for me. Even if it works, I wouldn't want to do it. Work should be enjoyable. So for me, what's fun is creating content and having people call me. So that's the beauty of content, is it's warming up your audience, moving them down the sales cycle, because people will only give you their money if they know, like, and trust you. How do they know, like, and trust you if all they see is a blurb on your website or something, or about this is what I do and everything? No. So each piece of content is creating a touch point. And, they say that, you need 5 to 7 touch points before someone's ready to make a buying decision. So I think Patrick and I was talking about, I just got one of my biggest contracts recently. In fact, I just got the check right before this call. They sent it to me. And thank you. And so I asked them, I'm like, hey, and we're talking and everything. So they called me and wanted to book a call with me. I said, sure, let's do it. So I'm talking to her and she's like, yeah, I saw you speak a couple years ago and you were wonderful. And I'm like, oh, great. I'm thinking, why didn't you call me a couple years ago then? And then she started talking to me again. And she's like, yeah. And then I've been listening to your podcast for the last 8 months. And I'm like, why didn't you call me then? And then she's like, yeah, and I just got your book and I think it's awesome. And I should have called you a long time ago. So what happens? Why didn't she call me? I know why. I didn't create enough touch points yet. So if I would have just did the speaking engagement and nothing else, would have never got her. She would have forgotten about me. But because I keep creating content and keep creating touch points, I'm continually reminding people I'm here, warming them up. Some people, they need a little warming up. Other people, they're not in the right position to make a move right now, but they might be 2 months from now.
Yep.
So if I keep doing stuff, they will keep. I just had someone email me today, said they took a 12-hour ride and listened to me for 12 hours. My podcast, all of them. Like, I'm like, God help you. But it was available. And so after someone has had me in their ears for 12 hours, I am under their skin, whether they like it or not. And they feel like they know me already. And it's a much easier sell. So like most of like my digital marketing, compadres out there who are doing that cold calling, maybe they got a 5 to 10% success rate. Someone calls me, I got like an 80% success rate of closing them because they've already been pre-sold. They just got to know, how much is it and when do we start? So content is just such a great way to build your brand, create those touch points, and move people down the sales process.
And now how about the communities that you've built?
So the cool thing is that as you create more content, you're kind of indoctrinating people into your way of thinking, into your company culture, which I know you guys are big on. Share your culture with everybody, not just your customers, but the whole audience at large. So they feel like they're a part of something. So like one of the things that I do, again, I say you put your personality in. So whenever I'm sending an email out or I'm at my podcast, I'll always usually end it. And I always say, everyone's got to have a day. You could have a good day, but why? Why not have an epic day? So like, I'm always saying that, have an epic day. Like, so I sign off a lot of things. So a lot of people will talk to me and they hit me with it back. All right, I'm going to go have an epic day, Fern. And that's, I created a culture now that they're part of my community. They're my people. They're speaking. I created my own language now with them. And again, it just brings people closer. And I think, one of the things that the best things I did to grow my business was I created a private Facebook group. And in there, I just give value. And I created this community of people, which is now at 1,800 people. And they're sharing with each other and everything. And I pop in there, give them some value here and there. And I think I was doing daily video or weekly videos for like a year before I asked them for anything. I even said I had something to sell. Building that rapport, creating the community. And me as the leader of the community, I'm seen as an authority figure in the space. It's not everyone does content because it's time consuming. It's not easy. Yeah, you do have to put yourself out there. So the ones that do, you get elevated above everyone else because only a small percentage of the people are actually doing that. So it elevates you. And you mentioned there, when I was doing a lot of videos, for my dog training business back in the day, I would show up and I would see they look kind of all flustered and stuff. And it's because they watched my video right after like a movie trailer. And my stupid video got the same kind of clout because I'm on the same platforms that all these big celebrities are on. And they were acting really weird with me. They asked me, I went to one place, they were asking to take my picture. I'm like, with me? I'm like, all right. So yeah, I think it's a great way to let people see who you are, get to know them, build rapport, and create that authority for you and your business. That was a long answer.
No, I loved it.
That's
I loved
good.
it. Yeah. And so even for, I think that's valuable for our listener who is trying to grow a brand or even has a brand and wants to continue to grow that brand, because I feel like nowadays, if you're not creating content, you are standing still while somebody else is creating content and you will be passed. So I think that's valuable for our listener. And I have to tell you, as somebody who, this is episode 34 of our podcast, my mind for a moment went to the first time somebody stops and asks us for our picture. I think that's going to be I will reflect back to this moment and it'll be a cool thing. So
they'll be like, hey, that's the frustrated CEOs right there. There they are. Yeah.
that's
And that's the thing. You have choices. You could be a producer or a consumer. Which one makes more money? The producer. So you could be the one making the videos, making the podcasts, or the ones listening to it. The ones making them are the authority figures in the space. And it'll immediately separate you from all of your competition.
So one thing I've heard from a couple of CEOs of late is, why do I keep having to tell my people the same thing? It's like, don't they hear it the first time? And I know earlier this afternoon, we were talking about practicing or reinforcing a message. So reinforcing or practicing something is very different than somebody having to continue to repeat it. I wonder if you could talk about that in terms of growing your people and the influence you were talking about that leaders can have.
Yeah, sometimes it doesn't sink in the same time, the first time, or sometimes this is why a lot of times when I'm doing creating like a marketing campaign for someone, I'll send them multiple different things. So some people, you'll see I have the same piece of content. Some people like to read, so they're going to absorb it via a blog. Other people like to listen to podcasts while they're driving. so they're going to do it audio. Other people prefer short videos and stuff. So everyone has their preferred method of communication or absorbing information, and not everyone is the same. So you have to think about your staff members, and not all of them are the same. Not all of them are going to accept information the same way, and not all of them are going to be open to receiving it maybe the first try. Again, it's about repetition and stuff. Now, obviously, you want your people, you don't have to say things more than once, but a lot of times, and I know I've learned this from you guys, is, if there's a problem there, it starts at the top. Like, we got to take responsibility and say, okay, this isn't working for these people. I can't blame them because that's not going to get me anywhere. I can steer my ship. How can I do this differently? And a lot of times, so I work a lot with dog daycare, facilities, and one of their biggest problems is staffing, and they're always so upset. And I go, their turnover is like horrible, and I'm always asking them, like, okay, so tell me the onboarding process when someone comes on, and they're like, oh, we have them in, they come in for a day, and they can watch somebody, in with the dogs, and then we throw them in there. I'm like that's it. They get a day and they got to go manage 30 unleashed dogs. Like, that's setting them up to fail. Like, how is that helping them do a good job? They probably are panicked and stressed out. It's not an easy job for the minimum wage they're probably paying. So we have to make sure we're doing the right thing. So, and again, when you have that onboarding process, it's not a one size fits all. So what I tell them is, okay, you have this process. Some people may go through it very quickly. Other people may take some time, and it's your staff. It's about investing. If you invest wisely with them up front, you don't have to keep training new people. So make the investment early on, understanding that everybody is going to be a little different. Some people are going to catch on right away. Other people could be great if they just got a little bit more hand-holding to get them up to speed to do what we need them to do. But it's hard. And I think you guys know it's also about asking the right questions, making sure you're bringing the right kinds of people in. If you're asking the wrong questions or you're looking in the wrong places, no matter what you do, you can't force somebody who's not a good fit from the beginning to fit in.
Great. Thanks for that.
So culture in the doggy daycare world, and you're talking to basically owners, right?
Yep.
Are they aware until you talk to them about maybe why their turnover is as bad as it is, or their onboarding is as incomplete as it is? Is this like new information for them, and that's part of the value you create? Or is it a bad habit? Like, I came in without a mindset about it, and I got all these dogs here, and that's our revenue, and
the problem with the industry that I work in is what happens is most people who are in it do it mostly because they are passionate about dogs, and almost, I would say 90% of them are leaving a corporate job, or they're leaving another career to do this. Is like a second career. This is not a first one. So most of them don't have a lot of skill sets about how to run a business or how to manage people. They're making it up as they go along. So I think it's very important to again, be self-aware and say, I've never managed people before. Maybe I should get a little help. So I think that's that they just think they should do. And I could still remember, like, when I had I have twin girls, and, my wife's very pregnant, and my dad coming to me and going, all right, the girls are coming. Have you thought about maybe having some help in the beginning? And I'm like, help? Everyone has kids. Are you saying I can't do it? I can do it. Everyone does it. It wasn't even 24 hours before I was on the phone sobbing to him. I can't do this. You got to help me. What on earth would make me think that I can keep two little people alive when there's nothing in my experience skill set that would do that? I needed help. So I'm like, oh my God, I got to read some parenting books, like, right away. I need to hire somebody to help me with these kids, or else we're never going to survive. And I think it's important to understand it's okay not to have the skill set, but it's not okay not to do anything about it and then blame someone and blame your staff for it. So again, it's about taking responsibility for it, steering your own ship, understanding what you need to do. And I think, everyone like reinvests into their business and stuff. You should be reinvesting into yourself. Like 10 to 15% of your income should go into yourself. I am always looking, okay, what kind of seminar can I go to? And I see a lot of people at business seminars, a lot of people going to conferences and stuff for their business. But what about yourself? Like if the CEO, if the manager, if anybody is not working on themselves, like you are the product. Like the better you make yourself, the better your business, the better people around you will be. So you need to get educated. So a lot of what I do is I try to say, all right, we got to do things a little differently, and try to help them through that. That's what coaching is. That's why you guys are so valuable to people. Like I think everyone should have a coach. Like I remember the first time I was going to hire a coach, I was petrified. I'm like, what the hell am I going to do? Is this really worth the money and everything? I did it. And I was like, oh my God, that was unbelievable. And since then I've spent more and more money on coaches every single time. And it's always been a great thing to help me get where I want to go. I don't know it all. I got to find someone who does know. So I think it's really important to keep empowering yourself. You can't do everything by yourself, no matter how good you are. Even the best sports athletes have coaches. Tiger Woods has a coach. Michael Jordan had a coach for his entire career. He didn't say, I know it all. Screw it. No. Even at the highest game, you're at the highest level of the game, you still need guidance. There's still stuff to learn.
Yep.
Yeah. So in addition to coaching, one of the ways that I know you have continued to stay on that positive path, continue to stretch, strive, continue to grow yourself, and continue to fight the ups and downs. Maybe fight the downs, right? The ups you don't have to fight, but one of the ways you continue to fight the downs is through masterminds. Talk about the masterminds that you've been in through the years and how that helps, and why a listener might consider, first of all, what is a mastermind? And then why might a listener want to use one or be part of one?
So it's funny you should bring that up, because that first coach I told you I hired, it was a mastermind, and I just reached out to him today. I still keep in touch with him, even though that was like 10, 15 years ago. And he's doing it again in Manhattan in September. So I might try to go again, because he was the first one to ever give me any coaching, and he opened my mind to it. But the thing is, like I always say, we are very limited if we try to go this alone. But we're unlimited if we harness the power of the collective, of other people with us. So, a mastermind is like, so one of the, like I said, I've read tons of books. These one single book that started me like heavy down this path was a book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, which a lot of people have heard of, I'm sure, listening to this. It was written, I think, in 1937 or something. And I can still remember like sitting down, reading that book, and like all of a sudden, like a light bulb going off. I remember putting it down going, oh my God, I'm never going to be the same after understanding the principles. And one of the principles he talks about is the mastermind principle. So I think he kind of invented it. But basically, it's about getting a collective people together and sharing information and helping each other, So, masterminds can be, small. They're typically small groups of people, maybe like 3 to 8 people. The one I went to was 8 people, and we each took a turn with one problem we were having in our business, and everyone's like, oh, I can help you. This happened to me. All right. Mm-hmm. And collectively, people pay large sums of money for masterminds. Typically, it's with your peers, other people doing what you're doing, so that. And every time I go speak, so I'm going to go, I have 2 speaking events coming up in the fall, and I'm going to have a mastermind there. And we're going to get a group of people together, and we're going to help each other out, get unstuck and move forward. It's such a great thing. Don't go it alone. The more, you can, and I'm a big believer in there's no competitors. There's just, a lot of people, they see competition, they're so afraid of it. Trust me, if there's no way you could take care of all the people in the world. Like, there's enough for everybody. So I don't see competitors. All right. I just see like-minded people that we can share information with and help each other out. We can all be successful. There's no shortage of opportunities for anybody. Take that.
That's right. We're all writing.
Yep. Okay. So as we start to, as I like to say, round third and head home, baseball reference. Other questions, thoughts for Fern before we switch gears and get practical?
What is this "let's get practical" thing? I'm not familiar with it. I don't know, what is that?
Just
It's my favorite part of the show.
We have heard that several times from, and I know we give credit to Leb every time, but that is his brainchild, and it's the one thing he brought to the show. The one thing. But no, it's great because nothing changes. So, but before we go there, any other thoughts or questions for Fern?
Not for me.
Leb looked like he had one.
Well, I mean, I think we've covered so much that I don't know about opening up another, but I guess what I'd say is, Fern, you have to give people feedback, right? I mean, it's just not, read this blog and everything's going to work. And, if there's anything, our listeners, we often say to executives, feedback is your friend.
Yeah.
Even when you have to hear something that you might not like or want to hear.
Yeah.
Does that work the same for you and what you're doing? And, you're sounds like you're kind of a coach mastermind for these owners.
Yeah. I mean, feedback is critical because you only have one perspective. All right. And you have to create an environment where people are okay giving you feedback, even if it's not what they think you want to hear. And so like I did some consulting at a place and they hire me and they say, listen, we're great. We're doing great. We got a great team here. You're here just to help us do better. I'm like, awesome. Great. That's cool. So I was there for the whole day. I'm, doing some stuff with their staff, got to know the staff a little bit during the course of the day. And then I said, okay, I want to talk to your staff without you guys here. And then they said, sure, whatever. So then I talked to the staff and they unload on me. They're like, oh, well, this would be better if this happened. This would be better if this time. And then I went back to the owner and she's like crying because she's like, I never knew that. I'm like, they didn't feel comfortable telling you, but They told me, so this is good. This is good. You want to hear that stuff, even though it's hard to take sometimes, so you have to, like, everyone gets very defensive in the beginning. So you have to kind of let that pass as quickly as you can and then be open-minded to say, okay,
right.
What can I do about this? Is this something I can change? Is this, but I think creating an environment where people feel comfortable to do that, whether it's like, so with my content, I remember someone telling me I was an idiot on one of my blog posts the first time. I was like, oh my God, they hate me. Oh my God. And I lose sleep for like a month. Now someone does that. I'm like, yeah, whatever. That's cool. And I always say, okay.
I apologized for that.
Yeah, you know what? I blocked you from most of my socials, so I couldn't do that anymore. But I tried again. I say, okay, is there any validity of it? Is there something I can take from it? Right. All those things are opportunities. Now, it may be someone like Patrick, who's just some internet troll, who's really has no like really substantial stuff behind it. But maybe it's something that I should think about and change. So you got to kind of not take it personally, and you try your best to create an environment where, and it may not be you as the head honcho, it may be having someone else underneath you. But I think Patrick, I've heard you talk about this a number of times of, how to have conversations with staff. So it's not so like confrontational where, you're on this side of the desk and they're, to try to create an environment where they're open to sharing with you.
Yeah. I think, and you said earlier, it's about looking in the mirror, right? As the leader, when you're not getting that feedback, going in with your fingers pointed at your team saying, why aren't you telling me what's going on? And why didn't you right? You're like, so that client you talked about could have gone right after your meeting, could have gone into the team and said, why didn't you guys tell me that? Why did you tell him and not me? And what does that do? That immediately puts them on the defensive. Yep. Instead of saying, hey, what do I need to do differently so that you would feel comfortable telling me that, right? What do I need to do better? And even sometimes leading with an apology to lower, like, hey, I'm sorry that you didn't feel comfortable telling me that. That's on me, not on you. What do I need to do better? What do I need to do differently? And then just listen. And I learned this. I give this a lot in my coaching. I learned this years ago in a marriage class, believe it or not, that when you get that feedback that stings, when you get that feedback that hurts, that you didn't see coming, when you feel that defensiveness, sometimes the best thing to say is, thank you for telling me that. Period. And just shut up, and not try to explain it away or defend it away. And even if you want to follow it up with anything, it should be, what else? Thank you for telling me that. What else? And sometimes when it really stings, and this from my wife, Dana, I might say, ooh, okay, I don't know what to do with that right now, but thank you for telling me that. I'll chew on that and come back to you with a thought. And my answer, my thinking 24 hours later is always better than it would be in the moment, right? When I can reflect and go, you know what? Yeah, she was kind of right. I can understand that. And again, then what do I need to do differently to change the situation, not to make her think differently?
Then it goes back to trying to get yourself out of your own view, and trying to think of they have a different perspective. Yep. You see it one way, but they don't see it that way.
Yep.
So I have to try to see it from their perspective. And then when you do, you're like, oh, you know what? I can see how that maybe you would have taken that way or something, given where you're coming from.
Leb, that was a great last question.
Yes.
All right.
Good job, Leb. We'll keep you on the
show. Good answer, Fern.
Thanks for not settling before you were done. That's good. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's get practical. Listener, this is the part where we try to provide a summary, a list of specific things that you can do starting today, starting tomorrow morning in your business to make inroads in the areas that we've talked about today. To me, the two main themes I think that have emerged is one is you can create a brand, you can create a following, you can certainly grow your business and create value by, right? There's this content piece, and then there's this professional and personal development. And Fern, you are the embodiment of what can happen when you just commit, when you're ready and you do the work. So, Fern, we'll turn it over to you to go first. When you think about what a listener can do today to start making progress in those two areas, or something else we didn't talk about that is just burning for you, what ideas do you have?
Well, for me, it comes down, everything we talked about really will be limited unless you begin with the first thing we talked about, which is self-awareness. So I would encourage, as an action item, to carve out 15, 20, 30 minutes in your day, preferably in the morning before everything gets crazy, for yourself, and just take a moment, check in. How do you want the day to go? Be intentional about it. How do you want to show up with your staff? Be intentional about it. How do you want to show up in your client meetings? Don't not think about it and then just react to whatever's happening. Be very intentional about it. And I think if you do that, you will see the outcomes start to head towards where you're steering it. You are the captain of the ship, so steer where you want to go. So that's like kind of, I think, the foundation that everything else we talked about will follow on. But then my second thing I would say is try to, as best you can, get out of your head, get out of your narrative, and put yourself in who's ever on the other side, whether it's your customer, whether it's your staff, your spouse, your kids. Always, if we try to remember that there's another point of view, ours isn't the only one, and it's not better or worse. It's just theirs. And if we understand that, then we know what we can do maybe to communicate with them and help, create a shared kind of experience where we want to go.
Nice.
You know we're running late if the cats are screeching and stuff too.
But any others, Fern?
And then I would say about content, think about, does your audience, how well do they know you? Are you providing value in the marketplace? Are there reasons for them to create those? Are you creating those touch points so that they can know, like, and trust you, and that The sell, like when someone calls you, it's not a hard sell. All right. Because they've been pre-sold by your content. And that's the thing is, it's not a quick fix though. Like, so for me, when I decided to do this, like, luckily I had and that's why when you have a business, you got to give yourself a little bit of a runway. Because you need to build momentum. And a lot of people, their runway's not big enough. And it's like an airplane trying to take off on a cliff. You know, if your runway's not far enough, whoop, you're over the side. So you got to give yourself enough runway. So for me, I did it the long way. But I think it's easier. Maybe not in the beginning because you're doing stuff and no one's listening, no one's really responding and stuff. But as you start building momentum, then everything the sales process is effortless.
Beautiful. Leb, what do you got?
A lot. 2 pages full. One, I really like this: reinvest in yourself, not just your business. I really like that. And people pay attention to what you do compared to what you say. So they're gonna watch what you do. They always, especially if you're a leader, and they're going to respond more to that than the dialogue or the message or whatever that communication might be. This one's really in your face. Any change is possible by repetition and forming new habits.
It's all about the reps.
Yeah. I never thought of it in gym terms, but
I do the reps.
Now I'm thinking of it a little differently. And, you know, I think you kind of said this, and I'll stop on this one because there's so many more. Just allow yourself to reflect and give yourself that luxury of quiet time. And it's just, especially now with so much going on, you can't, even if you don't read the paper and watch TV, you can't ignore that there's a lot going on. And reflection can be a real value for anybody, and certainly a leader, and for, you know, your people. You know, don't put them in a position where it's work out the door. Build in some reflection time for everyone.
Yeah, we talked about it personally, but I think that's so important, you know, to make sure your staff has that time. You know, everyone's got like deadlines and we got to go. You got to see how we got to go to this meeting. But what kind of franticness is not going to make people produce better, you know? And a lot of that's one thing that's it seems counterintuitive for a lot of, you know, business owners is there's so much to get done. We don't realize that by taking a pause, you'll be so much more productive. And it'll be much better. Like I was listening to an audio book called Limitless just the other day, and it was talking about how they did these studies that after 25 minutes of any given task, your productivity drops. So they were recommending you do like 25 minutes, take a 5-minute break. 25 minutes, take a 5-minute break. 25 minutes, because if you go too long, you're not as productive at all. So I think, you know, we think we have to keep going. I'm going to do these 12-hour days and stuff. And every once in a while, you know, you got to cram stuff in, but that's I think the bullet train to burnout.
Yep. Okay, Patsy, I'm handing it over to you.
Okay. My cat went at equal time. We've talked too much about dogs. So
yeah. It's like, get this dog guy out of here. Where's the cat people?
That's fantastic.
Oh my. Let's see. I've still got some good ones here. So ask yourself, what does the other person value? Ask yourself and ask the other person, what do they value? So, you know, be curious, find out. So I don't think we get that question asked of us very often. I also love the more value you provide, the more valuable you become. Mm-hmm. And that content starts with adding value. So let it go, give it out, you know, let people kind of benefit from it.
Wow, you guys were listening.
We were. The other thing I love, which I think you're a fantastic example of, is put your personality into your work. And see how that impacts, you know, and impacts your business.
Excellent. Any others?
Hey, Patrick.
Right. I'll let you go, Patrick, and if there's more, I'll add them back in.
Okay, I have a few, and then but go through your lists, and if you get to go again. I loved, Fern, you were just saying, you don't settle for being comfortably unhappy. When you settle into comfortably unhappy, you risk entering the drift, as you called it, where years can go by and you can find yourself just stuck in something you don't love, but you don't hate it enough to leave it. So just be careful. Don't allow that to happen. Along the mindset, and we are kindred spirits on this, and I think that's why it resonated with me. Just be careful of the messages in your head, right? The lies that you might believe, the soundtrack, whatever you want to call it, the narrative. And if that's your issue, if that's your challenge, then try surrounding yourself with more positive people. And if you need to change your environment, do it, because the payoff is significant. I love, on the subject of content. It's an interesting way to think about it. Content, you said content warms up your audience and it moves them down the sales channel, moves them through the pipeline. Each piece of content is another touch point. It's another reminder to a potential customer of who you are. And you can use that content, more and more content, to build communities, right? And to me, when I say community, I mean a pool of potential customers down the road, right? You're building people who love you. You're building a following. And because, as you said, people don't do business with businesses, they do business with people. You build a community, and you are giving yourself a good chance of converting some of those down the line. Let's see. It also said, I love this. This was pretty clear. You can be a producer or you can be a consumer, and producers make a whole lot more money. So creating content separates you from everybody else in your space who isn't creating content. So don't just be a consumer, be a producer. I've got a couple more that I want to add, but I'll pause and see if anybody else has. I don't want to steal everything that's left. Give you guys a chance, and then I'll come back. What else you got?
One I loved is we're very limited if we go it alone. We are unlimited if we go together.
Which is why this podcast is so awesome, because it's not just like you have 4 viewpoints, and I'm sure you don't always agree, but you're able to complement each other. And it's like the mastermind principle. You are better as a whole with
Agreed.
all 3 of you than just one of you alone. You have so much more knowledge, so much more experience set. So it's impactful.
Agreed.
This is the example of it right here.
Got another one, Lab? It looks like you do.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be quick about them. One is, don't underestimate creating a safe environment for feedback. You have to be intent. Quick funny story is, I saw so many leaders, but one in particular comes to mind, whose body language said exactly what was really going on while something else was being said, and everybody knew it, and it became unsafe. So you just backed off when things like that happen.
The body gives you away.
Right? You even have to pay attention to your body language. And the other is, I love about being intentional about the culture you create, and in your case, saying, have an epic day. I don't know in my lifetime if anyone has ever said to me, "Go have an epic day." And
you know what? It's funny. I used to drive. When my kids were a little younger, I used to walk them to grade school every day, hand in hand, until they told me they don't want to be seen with me. Bring them up, and everyone was like, "Hey, Fern, how you doing?" And I would go, "I'm awesome." And I would look at their face like they just expect me to say, "Yeah, I'm all right." Everyone, we say it without thinking, but it was intentional about always saying, "I'm awesome." So if someone asks me how I'm doing, I go, "I'm great." And they're always taken aback because we're just on autopilot, but I'm being intentional. No, I'm not okay. I'm awesome. How? And what I'm doing is I'm doing repetitions to myself.
Yeah.
Good.
That's good. Thank you.
I'll add one more, and that is, Fern, you were talking about your people. You said the more you invest in your people up front, the less you'll have to invest in replacing them later. And I think that's a good reminder, right? That not just onboard people for a day and then throw them to the dogs. I was going to say throw them to the wolves, but the more you invest up front, the less you have to invest in replacing them later. Fern, if somebody is interested in being part of your tribe, if somebody is interested in purchasing one of your books or seeing your content or talking to you directly, how would you like to direct our listener?
Well, you can find me over at overdogdigital.com. That is my digital marketing agency specifically for dog businesses. If people are interested in probably the book that's most relevant to your audience would be Getting Paid to Play with Puppies, which sounds like it's a dog book. And someone just told me I should rebrand that, but it's actually about how to find work you love. And it's kind of like my personal development book. So that you can find on Amazon along with the rest of my my books there. But yeah, you can just look that up on Amazon. You'll find it.
And if they want to see you speak in a couple of months, you said,
well, I'll be at dog specific industries. So if they want to go to Orlando to the IBPSA, which is the International Pet Association, I can't even remember the acronym. And I'll be at the Pet Boarding and Daycare Expo in November, speaking about marketing. But yeah, I'll speak to anybody at any time. As you can see, I can't even let you guys get a word in edgewise. I will. I'm happy to talk to anybody.
It's great. Well, and we've talked about this for years. I know you have your niche is the dog space, but the concepts that you talk about, your experience, your wisdom, your knowledge transcends industry. If you are a listener and your business has people, then you and your people can benefit from everything that Fern knows and talks about. So definitely connect with him. And I think anything else for the good of the cause? Otherwise, we'll start wrapping up.
Let's wrap it.
Yep.
Let's wrap it. Fern, thank you for joining us today. It's been great to bring you out from behind the curtain and put you on the hot seat. Thank you.
No, it's been a joy. It's always fun to hang with you guys, and I love to share any information that I can.
Awesome. Listener, thank you for sticking with us to the end of another episode of the Frustrated CEO podcast. You can find this episode and this episode's Let's Get Practical, the companion piece that goes with it, on our website that Fern will update. So if you like the bio picture, it'll be because he picked it himself. So I'm sure it won't be unflattering. But you can find it on thefrustratedceo.com, as well as all of our other episodes and companion Let's Get Practicals.
And one thing I want to say before I go, Patrick, is one thing I think we talked about masterminds and stuff, and you guys have a LinkedIn group, which is like a mastermind group. And that's where you can share information, increase the collective. So I encourage people to go over to the Frustrated CEO group over on page and over on LinkedIn, because it's a great way to share information.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Please, if you haven't connected with us there, definitely you can obviously connect with Patsy Leb and myself on LinkedIn. You can connect with Fern there as well. You can also connect with Fern on Facebook, but please do, if you haven't connected, if you haven't joined our Frustrated CEO podcast page, then we invite you to do so. And we invite you to leave us a review. If you are interested in being a guest on a future episode of the frustratedceo.com, you can contact us. All of our contact information is available on our website. Otherwise, we will see you again next time on the Frustrated CEO podcast.